Hi, it's Barbara again, and I'm back in my native garden. It's early spring, early April, and I just want to show you a few things that are blooming in my garden now, some things that will be coming up soon, and tell you a little bit about what I did over the winter for my garden. Here we go. We're going to start with a few things that some people consider weeds. These are dandelions. I'm sure you've all seen them in your lawn. And a lot of people do pull them, but they are great sources of pollen and nectar for the early pollinators. And here I have my creeping phlox, or moss phlox it can also be called. It's also a great flower for the early pollinators, and it covers my whole front hill. It's a nice ground cover. It stays green all winter long. So I love having it here to hold the soil in, and it's right at the entrance to my front garden. Also, I have a lot of wild violets. Again, some people consider these weeds, but they are wonderful host plants for fritillary butterflies. And they provide nectar. And they're pretty. So I use them as a living mulch or a ground cover. They are not here all year long. They just popped up here in the last few weeks. So you will see these over and over again in my garden. And these are common violets or marsh violets, some of them I believe. And here on the other side of my steps, I have some cut leaf toothwort. And toothwort provides nectar for native bees. These have actually been in bloom for a week or so now. It's just about the end of the season for them. But they just popped up in my yard. I didn't plant those, just as I did not plant the violets, nor did I plant the dandelions. But I allow those to come up in my garden. So we're going to work our way up here. I want to show you the next thing that's in bloom. Probably the only other thing that's in bloom in my yard right now, and that's the redbud tree. And the redbud tree provides pollen and nectar for the bees. And I want to get you up close to the flowers so that you can see them. And I have several of those growing in my yard. This one is a staging area for the birds when they're waiting for the bird feeder. One of my winter and early spring chores was to cut back the lower branches on this bald cypress tree so that I could get to my garden underneath. Also, you'll notice that I have still some stalks from my goldenrod. I actually left my goldenrod all winter long. It gives a lot of winter interest in the garden. But earlier in the spring, when they started to flop over and my other flowers were coming out, I decided to cut them back. But I did leave 1 or 2 feet, and that's in case the bees have built their nests in the stalks. You'll also notice that I leave the leaves in my garden. I did move some of them, but I've left a lot because that's where a lot of the caterpillars and butterflies and other insects live all winter long in these leaves. So that's something you want to remember. Leave the leaves as much as you can, and if you do need to move them, it's better to move them early in the fall rather than later in the winter. Something I've got coming up here is stonecrop, and that's a nice little ground cover. And I have that in several places. And we're going to work our way over. You'll see my Virginia Sweet Spire is starting to bloom, or starting to bud, rather. It will be blooming later on in the spring. And I did want to show you my arrowwood viburnum. It is beginning to bloom now. I have some tiny little flowers on it, and this is a great source of nectar, and in the fall it has berries for the birds. So it's a wonderful little shrub. And I do have river oats starting to pop up out of the ground. They'll be coming up soon. You can see those. And I have those all along my walkway here as a little bit of a border. So we're going to head back. And I hope you have enjoyed this tour of my Kentucky native garden here on Barren River Lake in Barren County, Kentucky. And if you do like it, please press the like button and also press subscribe. See you later. We'll have more on my garden later in the spring.